Welcome back, scholars. We're continuing our study of Chaucer, and today we're talking about The Miller's Tale. The Miller's Tale. Now, the host, having just heard, the host and the party, having just heard the Knight's Tale, the tale of chivalry and courtly love, asks the monk to tell a story of his own. The miller, representing a sort of different social class, the knight being being somewhat royalty, represents the upper crust. The miller kind of elbows his way in and goes, "I've got a story for you, let me tell you," and he insists on telling his story. The miller represents a different social class. He's the working class here, and Chaucer's doing something kind of fascinating here. He's telling a sort of populist story, and saying, okay, we have the royalty that have their perspective on things and their stories, but of equal value here are the working people. And The Miller's Tale is a story of sexual intrigue and, surprisingly, female agency. It's a very bawdy tale, and there are a lot of jokes in it, a lot of fart jokes, oddly enough. So the next time someone makes fun of you or chastises you for telling a fart joke, say, hey, there are fart jokes in one of the classic pieces of English literature. Step off. The Miller's Tale tells us of an old carpenter named John, who marries a beautiful young woman named Allison. And Allison is gorgeous, and as you would figure, John is pretty jealous of her. He's concerned about her because, well, he's probably a little insecure because of his age and his crustiness. And here is this beautiful young wife of his. And so they take in a scholar whose name is Nicholas, known in some circles as Slick Nicholas, which tells you everything everything you need to know about what's going to come next. Yes. And he's a student. He's, like most college students, he's poor and exists and subsists mostly on the charity of his friends. And he takes a room with Allison and her husband, John. Well, as you might expect, intrigue ensues. One day, when John is away at work in Ossany, Allison and Slick Nicholas are singing together. They are both musical. Allison has a beautiful voice. He plays a stringed instrument. And they're singing, and he makes inappropriate advances on her. In fact, it says he grabs her by well, I won't use the English word. It's a British term of some frequent use these days, but here in America it would be obscene. And she says, "How dare you? I'm a married woman. I can't believe you would do that. For how shameful you are." And of course, he apologizes profusely, and apologizes so profusely and so eloquently that he manages to seduce Allison. He tells her, "Look, if you will not be my love, I'll just die." And she goes, "Well, okay, we'll have an affair. But I got to be careful. John is a very jealous man. And if he finds out, it'll be the end of both of us." And he says, "Hey, don't worry about it. If a scholar can't outsmart a carpenter, I'm not worth my salt as a carpenter. Or as a scholar." And so they set about making plans to have their affair. Now, as if the intrigue with Slick Nick and Allison wasn't enough, in this town there is a clerk, a guy who works for the church, and he's quite the ladies' man. He's a singer, and he dresses extravagantly, and he is well known to all the barmaids and the ladies of the town. And he swings his censer as he goes down through the streets, and refuses to accept contributions from the pretty ladies. And he sets his eyes on Allison as well, and sets about trying to woo her. And he does so by, singing to her. He serenades her at some point. He tries to he plays Herod in the mystery plays there to try to impress her. And he continues to, he court her. He sends her gifts of food and jewelry. And some nights he comes and stands outside her window and serenades her from the window, to the point that the miller says, Who is this singing outside our window? There's some man out here trying to serenade and woo you. She goes, I know, and I can't seem to get rid of him. So, Allison is not hurting for attention. Time goes by, and Slick Nick the Scholar and Allison seize upon a plan to trick John in order to have a night together. They pulled this together one night when John is away at London. And she says, okay, we're going to have to do something to challenge him, to cause a little intrigue so that we can have our time together. And so she says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take sick to your room, or at least pretend that you're sick, and hide out in your room. So he stocks his room with food and drink, enough for about 3 days, and disappears for a while into his sort of splendid isolation there. And so John comes back from London and he says, where's Nicholas? He goes, oh, I can't find him anywhere. I haven't seen him the last few days. I've sent my maid to his room to ask, to check on him, but I've had no luck. He hasn't returned. And so he sends his manservant Robin and says, hey, knock on the door and see who it is. And he can't see what he's doing. He knocks on the door. Robin can't find him, can't get him to the door. And so he looks through a hole that was made for a cat to pass through. And he sees Slick Nick just sitting there in his chair as if he has been moonstruck, And the carpenter chides him about this quite privately because John is still in his room. And he goes, yeah, he looks like he's sitting. And Robin comes back. Robin, the manservant, comes back and says, yes, he's just sitting there in his chair and he's staring off into space. And it's like he's had too much astronomy. He goes, and the carpenter, of course, says, oh, man, that's too much learning can do this to you. If only he were a simple man, a working man like me, a carpenter, he would be a lot better off. And the only thing he needs to study is his faith and his religion. And so the two of them seize upon a plan, and they go and they put a wedge under the door and prise it up so that the door comes off its hinges and falls onto the ground. They come into the room and they shake him. It's like, Nicholas, are you all right? Nicholas. And he comes to and he goes, what? Who are you? Ah, yes, of course. He goes, what happened? He goes, what happened to you? He goes, well, I have had a terrible vision. He said, I tell you what, if you, I'll tell you all about it, but it just has to be you and me. But could you fetch me a drink? And so he goes, yes, he does. He sends Robin for ale. And when the three of them have had their fill of drinking, he sends Robin away. And the Slick Nick tells him, I had a terrible vision in my astronomy. There is going to be a second deluge like that of Noel. And the text says Noel. It's the word for Christmas. And the miller mistakenly, either mistakenly or on purpose, uses the word for Christmas instead of the word Noah. He said, this vision that was presented to me of this coming flood, and every man, woman, and child on earth will drown. But we have been given this. I've been given this vision so that we could save ourselves. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to need to get 3 tubs, and you're going to fill them with food and drink. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tie them up in the rafters of the ceiling up in the attic. And you're going to put, in addition to the food and drink, you're going to add an axe there. And so when the waters rise and when it reaches us where we are up in our attic and our tubs there, you'll take the axe and cut the rope and it'll just float on out and we'll be saved. He goes, well, how much food and drink will we need? I mean, it won't hold that much food and drink. He goes, oh, no, don't worry. You'll only need enough for a day because that's how long the deluge will last. Okay, great, thanks. And so he sends away and sends Robin and the woman, Allison's maid, away to London the night before the deluge is supposed to begin. It's coming on a Monday. And so he ties up the three tubs up in the ceiling, and they climb in. He says, oh, one more thing. You got to keep yours far enough away from your wife so that you won't look at her or get close enough to her and touch her and lust after her and there commit sin. He goes, okay, no problem. I'll do it. And so he does as he's told. He hangs the 3 three tubs up in the rafters and builds three ladders for them to access it. And they all climb up and they're to bed. And being very tired from his labors, he falls dead asleep right away. Once he's asleep, Allison and Slick Nick, they head down to the bedchamber, his bedchamber, no less. And so they begin having their wild old time. Well, meanwhile in town, poor Absalom is walking around, and he's asking around about if anybody has seen Allison, or particularly Carpenter John. And they say, yeah, I haven't seen John in a couple of days. I think maybe he's out of town in London or someplace. And he says, this is the perfect time for me. I can seize my opportunity here to pursue my romance with Allison. And so what he does is he gets all dressed up. He puts on his finest clothes. He chews on cardamom and spearmint or mint there to get essentially the 1300s version of mouthwash, and he goes to seduce this young woman. And so he stands outside her window and he begins singing to her and playing. And Nick wakes up, or Nick says, "Who is that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's Absalom, the clerk. He's got it in. He's got it bad for me, and he won't leave me alone." So she goes to the window and raises it up and goes, "Well, you go away. I'm a married woman. Leave me alone. This is improper." To which Absalom is heartbroken, a little upset and crestfallen. And he says, "All right, I understand. But do me this one thing. Give me but one kiss, and I'll go away." And here the trouble begins for Absalom. Allison, being a crafty and rather unusual woman for her day and age, says, "Okay, you're gonna like this, Nicholas. Watch, and you're gonna get a laugh." And she goes, "All right, one kiss." And she goes and she raises the window and sticks her derriere out the window, sticks her butt outside, and says, "All right, one kiss." And he goes in for the kiss, and it's dark, so he can't really see what's happening. And he kisses her quite passionately until he feels the brush of hair against his face and lips. And he says, "Well, wait, a woman wouldn't have a beard like that. It is a beard. Oh, no, And he figures out that what he has been kissing was not her lips. And she laughs her head off and slams the window. Well, he is disgusted, and so he rubs wood chips on his mouth, his face, and dirt, and whatever he can get his hands on, his cloth to cleanse himself of this most hideous of insults. And then he said, Chaucer tells us in that moment all of his love and all of his passion for her was extinguished. Replaced, as it turns out, by a thirst for revenge. So what he does, he goes on to town, and he heads back into town, and he finds the blacksmith shop open, and the blacksmith has been working away at something, and the furnace is hot. And he knocks on the door, and he goes, "Oh, hey, Absalom, what have you been up to?" "Oh, I bet you've been courting, haven't you?" He goes, "Yeah, something like that. Could I borrow one of these hot pokers here?" Which he does. He goes, "Yes, of course. Yes, I trust you. Anybody, I mean, I'll loan it to anybody, I'll loan it to you. Good luck." And so Absalom heads right back to the carpenter's house, and then begins singing out the window again. Now, at this point, Slick Nick has gotten up to answer nature's call. And he hears all this caterwauling and out at the window, and he thinks, "Oh, he's back. Well, I'm going to have a little fun myself." And so he says, in her voice, goes, "What is it?" He goes, "Listen, I've brought you my mother's gold ring. I'll give this to you, and then I'll leave. If I could just have but one more kiss." And he goes, "Okay, sure." And so Slick Nick opens the window and sticks his butt out. And he goes, "Can you say something? I'm not sure it's you. I can't find you." And he sings, and so, "Can you sing out, little bird?" As to which Slick Nick lets out a thunderous fart. Again, like I said, fart jokes have been around since the beginning of our literature. Like Hannah Montana said, or Miley Cyrus said in Hannah Montana, farts are always funny. And they certainly are here. And you may be clutching your pearls and saying, oh my goodness, this is prime English literature. They can't have fart jokes here. Oh, but of course you can. Because here's the thing. A really good comedian will tell you jokes and get you laughing, and then will get you to think about things, and he'll consider the really deeper and more pressing issues at work. And that's what Chaucer is doing here. So, it's undeterred by Nicholas Slick Nick farting in his face, our intrepid suitor takes the poker and jams Slick Nick in the butt with his fiery hot poker. And he calls out for water, water, oh, I'm burning, water. Well, this wakes up the carpenter, and when he hears water, water, he thinks, okay, the flood's here. So he takes his axe and cuts the rope on the tubs. And because he's up in the rafters here and there's no water to pad his fall, he drops right down to the floor. Unfortunately, he breaks his arm. Well, all this caterwauling and all this noise summons the neighbors, who all come out to see what is happening here. And unfortunately, he is literally the butt of everyone's joke, because they say, oh, John's gone mad. Oh, my goodness, this is so ridiculous. Oh, poor fellow. And the more he talks, the worse things get for him. And so the miller ends his tale thusly. He says, the carpenter's wife got screwed. Absalom kissed an arse. Slick Nick got his burned, and God save the company. What is going on here? This is English literature. This is stuffy old British lit. How can there be fart jokes here and bawdy sexual affairs and slapstick comedy? Well, that is because a good comedian, in order to make you think, will first entertain you and make you laugh. It's not all just highbrow stuff. He does this to open us up for some deeper lessons that will come later on. And he knows his audience. He has to keep his audience entertained. Chaucer understands this. And so he throws in some of these things for a little bit for the common people. What The Miller's Tale is a parody and a satire of the courtly love and the tales of chivalry of the Knight's Tale, right? And so he's kind of doing a populist thing here, where he represents all aspects of the society. The knight is royalty, the miller, working class man. And here we have a woman engaging in some personal agency here. She throws off the shackles of what was probably a prearranged marriage. And she says, I'm young, I'm beautiful, and I like young, beautiful men. And she also says, I'm also not just an object to be wooed, although Nicholas does woo her. She does rebuff him at first. And then when he says, oh, I'm terribly sorry, please, no, please, when she has a modicum of control, then she yields and gives way. And so really the person running the show here, the most powerful character and with the most agency, isn't the men in the story, but it's Allison. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.